I want to preface this video with a quick disclaimer. There are some wonderful sources of pertinent gaming information out there, to be sure. Some of the blanket statements I will make within this video absolutely have exceptions to them. But as a general direction, gaming journalism, quote unquote, with huge air quotes around that, is becoming a clickbait-ridden disaster of poorly masked political agendas, badly executed research, and pretty scummy practices in the name of self-advancement. Now, while I will indeed take a pretty judgmental stance and tone during this video, I have to admit I can identify with a lot of the different issues that spur the trends on which I will be speaking. Over time, my own channel has evolved through two different iterations of the YouTube adpocalypse. I've adjusted thumbnails, titles, metadata, and other metrics to try and entice growth, clicks, and other attention. It's the natural progression of the YouTube economy, but my hope is to remain self-aware enough to not devolve into predatory or dishonest practices ever. It is also a cornerstone goal to interject my own personal opinion and manage content in a way that's much more akin to commentary than journalism. I have dabbled in the reporting game. I've made videos about certain industry announcements or releases, but the meat and potatoes of the channel is guide material. It's commentary and a slight dash of controversy if we are being totally honest. There are some fantastic YouTube channels which I do follow in the pursuit of relevant industry news, since it is indeed a requirement for someone in my field to be up to date and up to snuff on these things. And also, it's a point of interest for any real avid gamer, I would suspect. The funny thing is, I doubt that any of the best industry news channels would self-identify as gaming journalists, and even if they do fit that definition to the letter, it is very unlikely to be how they brand their own identity. But now to the real point of the video. Does anyone remember this right here, the footage that's playing in the background right now? For anyone that does not remember, this is footage of an actual gaming journalist trying to play Cuphead to get material for a review and an article. Now, to be fair, the guy was a really good sport about this, and his article even pokes fun at his own struggles. He seems like a really good guy. But a great deal of gamers are interested in opinions backed by solid game mechanics and knowledge, or an understanding of fundamentals, since many gamers will themselves have those basic skills when diving into new titles. So regardless of how much I or anyone else respects Dean Takahashi's attitude regarding the events, he was the journalist behind the footage that's playing right now, it doesn't change the fact that this is a really suspect event that provides a real snapshot of concern when held up to the gaming journalism field as a whole. That's really old news though. It did warrant a mention because of how much debate it sparked back when it first dropped, but let's move on to something much more new. I was lucky enough at E3 recently to be invited to the private Cyberpunk 2077 press event, at which it was made explicitly clear that there was no recording allowed. This was made clear in the email chain that I exchanged with a PR rep from the company before I even went to E3. It was made clear before the presentation. It was pretty damn obvious that they did not want people to record anything at all. Me, being a YouTuber and not a journalist, who already has struggles with publisher and developer relations due to me being not always the calmest person in the world and having a lot to say about things that I maybe shouldn't have a lot to say about, I was on my best behavior at E3. No phone, but I was alert and ready to catch every single detail that I could with my mind's eye to better understand the project. Well, then there was the guy from Sifted Games. Truthfully, I've never really heard of him or his channel before, but he somehow gets it in his mind that they didn't specifically say no audio, they just said no recording. They just, kind of glossed over that or didn't mention it. And so he records all of the audio from the presentation, posts it on YouTube, leaks it, and now, because it's the nature of the internet, it's everywhere, and CD Projekt Red cannot get it taken down no matter how hard they work. So it's out there, and anyone that wants it can find it. He has this huge lengthy response after his video is inevitably struck down with a copyright claim from CD Projekt Red, go figure, saying that since there was no signed non-disclosure, which he is right, there was not, that they can't technically take it down, then saying that they were cool about it though, and ended on a bit of a bent where he insults other gaming journalists for not doing what he did, and he gets mildly upset that Sifted Games themselves were not credited for the leaks. He talks about how they didn't receive traffic or subs or whatever, and finally he fully ends with something along the lines of, it could have been a magic bullet for the channel, but instead we just suffered. That is scumbag journalism right there. And what's worse, I can't be 100% sure about this, but I feel like I was in his session. He looks insanely familiar, and though I was seated towards the middle and he claims to have been standing on the side, when his claims that he was openly recording and no one stopped him started flying, that's crap. It may not have been him, and it might not have been the same session, but no one had their phones out, and the guy near me who did pull his phone out as it rang a couple of times, which was super annoying, he got watched like an absolute demonic hawk by a CDPR employee who was standing nearby. They were on to him, they had eagle eyes, and they were looking for it. The claim that he was openly recording the audio is total trash. He's lying straight up. The expectation that he was, of course, going to do that, and it's unexpected to him that others did not do the same thing after it was made abundantly clear that this was an extended good faith invite where they did not want that type of recording to happen, is disgusting. The idea that these types of practices can be associated with growth is infectious and only leads to damaged media and developer relations, which breeds distrust on a monumental scale if it really does become pervasive. There are a few different types of leaks in the industry. Some are engineered by companies to build hype, and truthfully, they aren't actually leaks by definition. But others are a betrayal of trust and damage company relations with other similar influencers or industry representatives. It's a fine line to tread, being the first one to the scene, having the inside scoop, but not crossing too many lines as you bring that information to your customers or your consumer base. The unfortunate truth is that those lines are being crossed more often and will have a downward pressure effect on the entire space, which we call gaming journalism, if it doesn't really turn around. The last area I want to discuss is rather broad when compared to the previous two topics, and it absolutely applies to certain outlets far more than others. Some gaming news sources, like Polygon maybe, or Kotaku, they don't exactly have the best rep in the industry at the moment, and there is a damn good reason for that. The reason is quantity over quality and perhaps a sprinkling of bad writers. It's no secret we live in an age of internet clickbait. Everyone knows that. It's just a norm that we live with on a daily basis. I've already discussed my own experience with the sliding trend, but gaming journalism has adopted a machine gun approach to the atmosphere. Instead of prioritizing certain games and covering them in a well thought out and educated manner, and truly bringing valuable content, albeit for a smaller range of products, to their audience, they rev up the engine and just pump out sometimes badly constructed content, ill-prepared articles often written by relatively uninformed employees who are not well versed in the game they are covering and did not spend the time to become so. And worse yet, these articles are almost never void of political bias. It may seem rich coming from me, I get that, because I have very defined political views myself, which I voice on the channel all the time. But I don't pretend that I am not doing just that. I don't produce content from an ill-constructed platform of unbiased news reporting while clearly pushing an agenda. In specific instances, I will indeed try to make a note of a particular concept, keep it unbiased, and attempt to diverge from the typical model, but mostly, myself and other YouTubers are operating from a platform of individuality while also spreading information. None of this is to say that I am a better source for gaming news content than any mainstream outlets. Far from it. I don't cover hardly anything in the grand scheme of the industry, and the things that I do cover are pretty biased. And I can't even make the claim that I am a good YouTuber by any stretch. I sort of just ended up here after posting videos of me playing The Division back in the day, but this is meant to spur a bit of thought and discussion about the atmosphere of self-proclaimed gaming journalists, with big air quotes there, since a great deal of gamers are indeed tuned into their frequent releases and may actually adjust their expectations, their spending habits, or form predisposed opinions about games from their material. It should be known that the current state of things is precarious at best. You even have reviews and articles being written, infrequently, I'll admit that, but still unfortunately a thing. They're written before the game they are discussing has launched. Most often, these are politically aimed and have a detrimental effect. Now, if a game launches and it's bad, or you make no pretense and want to do a political piece, then by all means, no one can stop any outlet from doing so. But what we have now is a rapid-fire, poorly advertised model of quantity reporting, and there aren't always the right people behind the keyboard, to say the very least. In the end, this video itself is extremely biased, but I thought it was a relevant topic in the industry right now, especially with the resurgence of the debate that gaming journalists should be good at the games that they play, or is it okay that they're terrible at the games that they play? Can they still make good content and write good articles? Yada yada. It's something that's been an ongoing issue and an ongoing debate topic in the industry for quite a while. Now here's the call to action part of the video. Who do all of you use for gaming news? Personally, I use some fellow YouTube channels that I've made inroads with, and the upper echelon community itself is actually a really great lightning rod that will point me to things that I miss more often than not in my own feeds. But in terms of larger organizations, which ones are up there at the top or bottoming out right now? I am truly interested to know, so leave a comment if you like to participate in YouTube threads. That's about all for today's video though. Like always, you can check out the various links in the description down below to join our gaming forums, social media groups like Facebook. I do live stream on Twitch once in a while for those that are interested in watching me learn certain games, if that's your cup of tea, and a patron link too, if you're interested, since YouTube, policy-wise, is truthfully unreliable at best nowadays. But that's it. I'll stop rambling. Thank you for watching, and have a nice night.